major TMI alert, like if you are pregnant and about to deliver, maybe you shouldn't watch. I don't want to scare anyone. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel, and also welcome to my car. I am not going to have any time today to film unless I do it right now as I drive to the beautiful city of Alingsås, where I'm going to conduct some banking business. Anyway, so I have an update that is pretty devastating. And I wanted to talk about it because I need someone to talk to about it, and I don't really have anybody literally in the whole world, it seems, to talk to about this problem I'm having. And my husband doesn't seem interested in talking about it either because he gets really stressed out when there's nothing he can do to help me, which makes the problem even worse. So I have mentioned in previous videos about how I sustained a birth injury, and I'm going to just briefly describe it right now. When I was delivering my daughter, I had no pain relief at that point, and it hurt. Shocker. And the ring of fire was really devastating for me, and so I decided at some point during pushing that the only way I was going to get my daughter out of my body was to just suck it up and push through the pain. And so I got this one contraction and I pushed and I screamed bloody murder through it. But I pushed and I delivered her head in that one push, and then I continued pushing and I gave it another one huge push, and she was out. So I don't really know what happened. I don't know if I had just one big contraction and I pushed her head out and then I pushed again, or if it was a back-to-back contraction, or if it was just me. I don't know. But that way of delivering, I'm pretty sure, is what caused my issue. I don't think I'll ever really know what caused the injury I'm about to describe until I find a doctor who can tell me what is actually wrong with my body. But my hypothesis is that I may have caused this injury at some point during my delivery. So, the injuries that I got from the way my daughter was born was, first of all, I tore in 3 places. They were minor tears. I did get stitches for all of them, but they were extremely minor. I had a tear going up either way across my labia, but I never, ever, 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 ever have felt any pain or problems associated with those tears whatsoever. And then I had a tear going inside my vagina along my perineum that also required some stitches. That one sucked, but I healed completely from it. I remember sex being painful for like 9 months after having my daughter. It did seem like it was going to take forever to get better, but I'm fully better. Like, I don't have any problems with any of those tears. The one problem I do have, though, is a soft tissue tear somewhere around my pubic bone. And major TMI alert, like if you are pregnant and about to deliver, maybe you shouldn't watch. I don't want to scare anyone. I don't want to scare anyone. All right, you've had fair warning. So I'm just going to describe exactly what it was that I experienced in those immediate weeks postpartum, and then I'll get to what I'm going through now. So imagine what it would feel like if someone took like a very sharp piece of glass and wedged it right between your clitoris. It is worse than you probably are even imagining right now. And that's what I felt for 6 full weeks after delivering my daughter. That's the sensation. Now, it wasn't a constant pain. It only hurt when I would bleed through my clitoris. How fun does labor and delivery sound now, right? So And I'm smiling and laughing because it's one of the only ways I've learned to cope with the misery. But anyway, so what my doctors think happened is that I had some sort of soft tissue tear just above my clitoris, somewhere around my pubic bone area. And the reason they say that is because finally, after like 5 or 6 weeks of like absolute misery and sheer terror, like terror that this pain would never go away and I'd need someone to surgically remove my clitoris. I mean, I was about to do it myself. It was that painful. I finally got in to see a specialist. They put me on the table. They gave me a pelvic exam. And she said everything looked fine and normal on the outside, except that I had a lot of bruising around my urethra and my labia. And so what she had assumed happened was that I had this soft tissue tear on the inside, and every time, and I mean this shard of glass pain, like I said, it wasn't constant. It was only when I bled, and I would only bleed when I was doing certain things that like manipulated my pelvis, like sitting down, standing up, maybe bending over a little bit. I remember like not being able to change my daughter's diaper. I had to change it standing up. I couldn't do certain movements, and it's been 17 months now, so it's not fresh in my head, but I couldn't do certain things. And so anyway, I would do these movements, I'd feel the pain, I'd have the bleeding, and I knew I was bleeding through my clitoris because I could see it on my pad. And also when I wiped, the blood was coming through there. It wasn't coming through my urethra, it was coming through my clitoris, and that's where the pain was also. So the doctor was saying that based on the pain, based on the bleeding patterns, and based on the bruising, what she thought was happening was that as I manipulated my pelvis, I would reopen this tear. It would cause a bleed. The only place for the blood to escape would be through my clitoris, which was the nearest hole, or also it would just pool at the top of my vagina, just like because of gravity. And the combination of the two things was creating pressure on the nerves that were in that very sensitive part of my body. So this all made a lot of sense to me. And they didn't do any further diagnostics because they said I needed to give it time to heal. And then they would pursue it further if I continued to have issues. But it did get better. So, with that said, I thought everything was fine until I got my first postpartum period. And I realized things were not fine. So, by the way, I'm not driving right now. I had to park at a gas station. So, so then I get my first postpartum period. And for literally the whole first year of my daughter's life, every time I got my period, from the day I actually started menstruating fresh red blood to the moment my period ended, I would have pain in my crotch area. It wasn't that shard of glass feeling anymore, and I never did bleed ever again through my clitoris, and I've never had bruising that I've seen. Maybe I should look. At least that I've seen. I haven't had any bruising down there. But the sensation I have experienced every single time I've bled, at least for those first 10 months of getting a period, felt like someone had put on steel-toed boots and repeatedly kicked me directly on my crotch. Like, the whole area always feels super tender, bruised, sore, and the amount of pain I feel is directly correlated to the amount of bleeding I have. So on my heavier days of bleeding, the pain is it can get so bad that I can't even stand the feeling of my underwear touching my crotch. And then on my lighter days, I might not even feel it at all. And there are months when I have just super light periods. Like from September up until this month, I didn't have any pain with my period. And so I actually thought that it was gone until this period I am having right now. In the past couple days, I've been going through this pain again, where it's just like, I'm so tender, I'm so sore. It's a deep, aching, dry, stabbing pain. The pain almost feels like the pain you get in your diaphragm when you get the wind knocked out of you. If you can Like, imagine that pain, but in your vagina. I guess it's not in my vagina. It's sort of like on the outside around my pubic bone, clitoris region, whatever. Sex doesn't hurt. Riding my bike doesn't hurt. Like, I don't have any heightened pain when I do activities. It's just the pain just is what it is for like 1 or 2 days. 2 days maybe. And then it's gone. With all of that said, I emailed my gynecologist, my OBGYN from the States. I told her, look, I know I'm not your patient anymore, but I'm at the end of my rope. I'm having these issues. Do you have any ideas as to what this could be? Because over the course of 2017, I had talked to my care providers here several times, and I asked them what they thought it could be, and everyone just shrugged their shoulders and said they had never heard of anything like this before. They had no idea, and to just give it time. But if I was in extreme pain, I could always just call the hospital and go to their gynecological unit, especially because I delivered there, and they have the specialists on hand who could seek further treatment. But I just wasn't at a place in my life where I could or really wanted to pursue that, so I didn't. And then the pain went away, and I thought everything was fine. And now I'm trying to conceive, and I'm having this pain again, and I'm freaking out, thinking that maybe I need to get this addressed before I get myself into a pregnancy. So before I called my care providers here, I just decided to send my practitioner in California an email and say, look, before I pursue this here in Sweden, do you have any ideas as to what this could be that I could bring up to them? Because I've talked to them about it before, and people don't really seem to have any idea what's going on. So I would like to go into this again armed with the idea that I might have some suggestions, like maybe it could be this, maybe it could be that. Can we look into this, maybe this procedure or whatever? So I write this whole long old email to her after she says, yeah, sure, go ahead, email me, let me know what's going on. She writes me back, and this is the woman who has like the answers for all my problems. And even she says, you know what? I'm also stumped by this. Is it okay if I ask my colleagues about your situation and see what they have to say? So I'm like, yeah, go ahead and ask anyone you need to. And then just a few hours later, she gets back to me and she tells me, she's like, look, I have this brilliant colleague, and he has suggested, he or she, I don't remember what she said, they have suggested the following. They told me to ask or to bring it up to my care providers here to see if they might recommend doing an HSG, which is when they, inject dye into your uterus, and it's used to treat or to help investigate infertility issues in women. So I've read all about this in the TTC groups, and unfortunately I hear it's really painful, but they shoot this dye up into your uterus, and they look to see if the dye goes into your fallopian tubes to make sure you don't have any blocked fallopian tubes. But what this specialist has recommended was to get an HSG to see if the dye escapes out of the uterus anywhere. Because the idea is, perhaps I might have a fistula, which is an unhealed hole in an organ. This specialist is thinking, okay, maybe there might be a hole somewhere in my uterus where menstrual blood is leaking out and collecting somewhere in my body, and just with gravity it drops down and settles in my pubic region. Perhaps it's enough to just collect and press on the nerves. So that's one recommendation they had. And the other suggestion was that I just have nerve damage, which I know can happen. And I also know nerve damage can take a long time to heal. But nerve damage is nerve damage. And how do you diagnose it? There is no just simple test you can take to diagnose nerve damage. There is no simple fix for it. Although my doctor did say, she said there were 2 drugs that they would use to treat this type of nerve damage. So I'm going to call the gynekolog mottagningen in Borås, which is like the gynecological department of the hospital that I delivered in. And I am going to set up an appointment to talk to them and get some diagnostics done. And I'm going to stop, I think, trying to conceive until then. The idea that I could have a hole in my uterus, even if it's just a pinprick, But the thought that there could be enough blood to be passing out of my uterus and collecting into my body is terrifying to me, because you know why? That means if I were to get into a pregnancy situation, I could be up against a uterine rupture. I'm not going to go stretching out my freaking uterus with a hole in it if that's possible. And I can't see any way of getting around the HSG if there was a potential of that being the issue. So I think I'm facing probably a guaranteed HSG, which is really scary for me. But also, if I'm going to try to be positive, I could say, hey, maybe this could just be a good way to collect some data on my body. And, if it takes us months and months and months and months and months to try to conceive and we're still not successful, at least I know that my tubes aren't blocked. But I don't know what the risks are of getting an HSG. I don't know if it can cause like endometriosis or some other problems. I've heard it's really painful. I'm not looking forward to it whatsoever. But if I'm serious about wanting to have a baby, I need to make sure I don't have a freaking hole in my uterus. At least not a second one. Because you need one, right? For the sperm to get up into. So that's where I'm at. But then here's another thing. If it actually is just nerve damage, I don't think I'm going to have another baby. And I've cried some tears about that this morning. It's also all in my control. It's my decision. There's no one saying that I can't. But for me on the inside, I feel extremely selfish, and I feel like I'm taking a lot of unnecessary risk by trying to have another baby if it means that I could actually have the potential of debilitating nerve damage if I were to have another vaginal delivery. I desperately want another baby, especially for the sake of my daughter. But I'm also really freaking grateful that I have a perfect and healthy and beautiful baby, and that I've got a strong and healthy body. So I'm at a really interesting crossroads, and I'm going to document it as I go, because right now in my life, I feel like I'm the only person in the world going through this. Literally. My doctors don't know right now what's going on. I've joined birth injury groups and explained what is going on with me, and no one has any idea what is happening. And, it was never a traumatic thing for me. I live a very happy, healthy, balanced life. I don't have trauma over all this, so I don't want anyone to be scared of this happening to them. The fear that I have right now is pursuing another pregnancy and spending all 9 months in horrifying pain because of all the pressure of what's going on in that region. I also, right now, just based off of how I feel during my periods, I cannot fathom a vaginal delivery if I'm going to have that type of pain during it. If I do just maybe have scar tissue and my nerves are compromised a little bit, I can't even fathom the increased damage and healing time that would be required after another vaginal delivery. I've spoken in a mommy group about this on Facebook, and people are like, well, depending on what the doctors say, if it is nerve damage, you absolutely can go for an elective C-section and avoid any of the trauma. But my ideas with that are, number one, that is not going to take away the risk of horrifying and debilitating pain throughout my entire pregnancy, especially as my pelvis starts to open toward the end. And it also carries a ton of risks and complications in and of itself. I don't think I'd want to put my body through that trauma. I don't think I'd want to put my body through those risks. I don't want to risk damaging my body with the knowledge I have now of what's going on, because you never know what could happen in pregnancy and delivery and everything like that. But knowing what I know now, I can't foresee myself putting myself into a position where I would irreparably harm myself to the detriment of my surviving daughter that I have now. Because right now I can give all of myself to her. I can do all the things with her. I'm happy, I'm healthy. But if I go forward with a pregnancy and shit goes south, and suddenly it takes my ability to live a normal life away and my ability to be a normal mother for my beautiful baby girl. That's not something I want to do. It's not something I want to do. So that's where I am now. I will keep this channel updated. I'm going to continue doing all the things, but once again, at the beginning of a new cycle, we are out. But I'm going to stick with my supplements and vitamins. I'm sticking with my diet. I'm sticking with my exercise. I'm sticking with my water intake. I am sticking to treating my body as if I am going to come up with a solution for this problem, and that it is fixable or not something I need to worry about, and that we will end up being able to TTC eventually. Like I said, we weren't going to start trying until April anyway, so all the time between now and April is just a blessing. I think it's a blessing that this happened so that I know to look into it now before our actual trying to conceive clock starts to tick. So I also have to get a mammogram at the beginning of March because I do have a tumor in my left breast. My doctors in the States say that it's benign and that it's a hamartoma. But they also told me in 5 years I should get it checked out again. And it's been 6 years. So I'll throw up some videos on that journey in case it interests people. And there was one other thing that I needed to go through. I remember what the other thing was. I also have these ovulation pains. Last cycles sucked. It was 12 hours of pain, like really bad pain. I had called my care providers here about that, and they told me that the next time it happens, they want me to take like acetaminophen or ibuprofen and see if that makes any kind of difference in the pain level, because they told me that if it doesn't, I'm going to need to come in and get it looked at. And I will, I guess, document what my doctors say here if they want me to still come in based off of what I experienced this cycle. Stay tuned if you guys think that you're going to end up needing an HSG at any point in your journey, because I might have some content to share on that. And yeah, so now I'm just rambling, so I'll end this. But thank you for watching. I don't know right now what the future holds, but I really would like another baby. So hopefully we can get a resolution for this. Yeah, that's it. Okay, bye.